Good afternoon. This is Tamara Sweeney from Love Dominates. Today I'm so excited because I am interviewing Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. But before I start the interview, I just want, for viewers that don't know Love Dominates, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And basically, our mission and our goal is to educate people on parental alienation, the domestic family terrorism that you go through our court systems. Um, and basically, what we're trying to do at the end is to teach people to choose love over hate and compassion over judgment. So, I this whole entire month, Marty, I have gone over it's Domestic Violence Month. And what's so awesome is I'm here in the Caribbean with Marnie, and she took me downtown, and they had some flags up, these domestic violence flags. So today I'm actually going to expand on the domestic violence. And the main reason I want to interview Marnie, not only is she an author, but she actually took herself from domestic violence to a survivor, a thriving survivor. And I want you to teach people, or at least explain your experience of how you got from pain to power. So, um, I'm actually gonna read Marnie's credibility here. So sorry to embarrass you, but I had to write this down. Um, I am here in the beautiful Caribbean with Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro, an award-winning Harvard-educated high school and university teacher who is now a very well-received author. Marni also happens to be a domestic violence survivor of family terrorism and parental alienation. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Oh, this is awesome. I'd rather be here than anywhere else.
Me too.
First of all, how I want to start this is, how did you even trip upon Love Dominates?
Well, just like many people who find themselves in an abusive situation, which is usually after you've escaped it, um, one of the steps is just doing your research, just finding out how could stuff like this happen to me. I'm an empathetic, honest, caring person. How could I have been lied to? How could I have had false allegations made on me? I mean, it's kind of shocking. And so, one thing that I would say most survivors or people in this situation do is they seek out education. So there's a lot of YouTube videos out there providing support for people. And sometimes it's advice, sometimes it's medical, scientific, perspective. Sometimes it's just someone telling, a mom or dad telling their story of what happened to them, where you can kind of relate to it. And there are a lot of great sites out there for narcissist abuse. And there are so many that to name here, we would be here
Yes,
another
forever.
hour. But when I eventually realized that parental alienation was part of my domestic violence, where a loving relationship I had with my children was being compromised by just complete outlandish lies. And this is to adult children. They're not like little kids that don't.
How old were your kids? Just to help the viewers
Well,
to relate.
I would say by the time I was
Sorry.
married for 27 years, and I'd say by the time I realized I needed to get out of that abusive situation, they were in their 20s. So, 20, 25.
Did you ever get people saying to you, well, your kids are in their 20s. They're intelligent. They should be able to figure this out.
Well, yeah, of course, or you get people saying, well, they'll come back to you because they know better. They lived with you and they know what a great parent you were. And but the reality is, and I'm sure your organization covers this. There's just a lot of brainwashing that gets done, and even adults find themselves in cult situations. It's kind of like a cult, where they
Absolutely.
give you false, they just recreate memories. They implant false ideas, and they. But that happened to me even though as and so I look at myself as an intelligent, reasonable person. Yet
Very educated.
I was made to believe things that weren't true, and I believed them too. And I think that it after a while, one thing, things, you get all these red flags. I even had red flags before I even entered this relationship, and I had people saying, be careful of this and that, and this doesn't add up. And but you just, a lot of people just don't pay attention to those red flags. That's why there's
Or the signs.
hindsight is 2020. So anyway, I came across your site because I just was delving into the literature and into YouTube channels and communicating with people that had been through this or are going through this, um, almost for validation of like, wow, this really is happening to me. And so Love Dominates was one of the best sites. Partly because not only do you tell a story but you're saying what is happening to your children, what happened in your marriage, what's happened in the courts. Many of us have experienced that, but the other reason why I connected with your organization is because you have a basis of love and compassion. You're an empathetic person. You believe in goodness and honesty, and those are the values I believe in. And so,
Thank you for saying that.
yeah,
Because I have been, this is what I found out going through this whole ordeal is the good ones, the good souls are, which breaks my heart, are beaten down, are really beaten down. The truth tellers, or you could call it good versus evil, or, the truth tellers versus the liars. Anyone who tells the truth, the people that are either have jealousy or envy or they're just haters of you. They want to see you fail. So they knock you down. They knock you down. And I didn't believe that happened because I believed in my own high school friends that would still be around and supporting me. But, you have being attached to a narcissistic uh, personality, you are isolated. You go through
definitely.
divide and conquer. You go through all these things. And I really, what's intriguing to me is now that I'm here and I can see everything, is you have gone through surviving the most horrific experience in domestic family terrorism, in your own marriage with your children, your husband, but yet you were able to come out on top by writing this book. And I really want to get into this book and dig deep into it because for me, myself, after I read the book, I realized the signs that I had were really unexplainable signs, but it was teaching me to go forward and teaching me to open up those doors and not have fear to open up those doors, and
Right.
and they were real. So I'll let you expand on that later, but I don't even know where I was going through this. Is
Well,
how you are
think
so
you were also,
successful.
but I think you were also mentioning that people don't always understand. They might look at you and what you're doing like, oh, she's negative. She just needs to get over it, or I think it's been
Move on with your life.
10 years for you since you've been alienated from your children,
Yes.
from your 4 beautiful children. And, a parent, whether it's a father or a mother, that is the truly loving, honest, good parent, it is just unfathomable to have this happen. It's shocking. And it's very hard to just, move on with your life when you know in your heart of hearts that that you are the good person, and you're the one bringing honesty to the situation, and only goodness, and you can see the abuse or the lies and the negativity, the people, like our exes that are extremely abusive, they do everything they can to hide the truth, and it's
will do anything
yes,
they can,
they
meaning
right.
push you to suicide, try to murder you.
There are so many cases. If you just anything that you would think of, there's from mild to severe.
Hmm.
when it comes to this type of abuse. And but the fact that you've devoted your whole life now to this organization, to bringing awareness to to this of this awful worldwide epidemic that's happening to mothers and fathers everywhere. And but at
Yes,
the same
it's
time, in the hopes that at some point your children will realize, wait a minute, I am being used as a pawn. I don't have the issue with this parent. The other parent has the issue with the parent, and they're using me, and they're lying to me, and they're isolating me, and um, you'd like the
actually,
light bulb to go on.
you brought up a good point because the narcissist is so good at what they do that the child, when they are actually demeaning you and demoralizing you and putting you down, um, they actually say, "These are my words. This isn't from dad
Right,
or mom, whatever
right.
your case is.
Hmm.
Um, this is from me." And they're putting demands on you about the courts. They're putting ultimatums about you about
Oh, they
drop your lawyer, do this,
right.
do that. And they're saying it's from them and they don't even get it.
No,
They don't
no.
even get that they've been indoctrinated,
Some
really.
parents will actually even have the children take out orders of protection against their
Yes.
other parent,
Yeah, how
and
crazy.
judges will go along with that. Even if there's no abuse found or anything like that, they will actually engage the children in these adult kind of situations that are so wrong, because they're based on lies and forged documents and all that kind of thing. But the children, and even if they're adults, I think the term is independent
Thinker.
thinker syndrome. And where they believe it's them, that no, 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 the other parent never speaks bad about you.
These are
This
my
These
own
are my
thoughts.
thoughts, and I'm doing this, and because of what you did. And when you even ask them, well, what did I do?
Hmm.
What led you to have so much hate and anger? They can't really come up with a definitive. They're using the narrative of the ex-spouse. They're not even using their own narrative. and and what happens, as you know, with parental alienation is they will cut off the entire side of the family. So they
Hmm.
might have had a loving relationship with an aunt or uncle, or
Grandparents.
grandparents, but they cut off that entire side of the family.
Hmm.
And that is
Anyone that speaks to you
right,
is cut off.
right. And you know, so
But
what
they
we
but
really
the alienator actually contradicts himself because they'll say, "I want you to have a relationship with your
right.
child." Meanwhile, there was no problems with you having a relationship. They left you for you raised your kids for 21 years without,
Right. Yeah. No.
with no issue
No. No.
until the day you asked for a divorce. Then
Right.
all of a sudden, you're mental, you're this, all these
Oh, sure.
accusations get thrown on you.
Whatever it is, though, people believe it because like I have a whole neighborhood. Not one person has talked to me
That blows
since
my mind.
and I was like, the neighborhood mom doing the lemonade stands and the
I mean, you were the
um
school teacher.
yeah, yeah.
You were the mom that did everything and probably watched all those kids.
Yeah, we
So they
just
trusted you at one point with their own kids.
oh, sure, sure. But
It's
that it's just hard to know what lies they were told. But these people, and they're not well. I mean, our exes is they're just not well people. They project a lot and say that you are the one with the problem, but they've had whatever their
that's a
childhood
projection
traumas.
of them.
Yeah, they whatever childhood traumas they've had, or inadequacies. These people are almost shells of them. They don't even have their own personalities. They
Mimic
they
yours
mimic
or
yours. They want goodness. They want it. Lots of times these people are CEOs of companies, or they're leaders in their church or their school community, or their top officials that have this public persona that they make sure that they look so good on
sure, look at our
paper.
government.
Right, yeah.
Look at our government.
They look so good on paper, and they fool a lot of people, but then when
Yeah.
in reality they are not well people. And then the fact that your light bulb went on because they did a lot of juggling. I mean, in many cases, some of these husbands and wives have other families that are just like after the divorce, many years are coming out, and somehow your adult children have to learn that they have half siblings that they
Think
never
about that.
knew about.
Think about being in a narcissist. So they
They
have
have to juggle a lot of their secrets.
lies. Yeah.
Well, and secrets. Some of these people even get. They're even
secret
known.
agents.
They're secret agents. Yeah, like they're just they've got. People say a double life, but lots of times it's a triple and quadruple life. They are juggling a lot of other relationships, and they're obsessed with
The truth coming out.
the truth coming out. So they do everything that they can to hide the truth, which includes isolating. Like, you were already isolated, but they isolate the children, like the brothers and sisters, from each other. They're not allowed to talk to each other, or
Yeah,
they just
awful.
keep a lot of
Awful.
secrets. They keep a lot of secrets, but in reality we're bringing the truth out. And part of that is because of our human nature and our pain and our love for our children, that we want them to live a happy life, and we're sad for them that they are caught up in this abuse.
I have a question for you because this is important for people that are just going through this. We're obviously in a situation where we're dealing with, a decade of abuse. But for people that are just starting this is a key point. If you are still in a marriage or relationship and you're starting to read these signs that we're talking about, you need to make a plan before you do anything, because like yourself, you only had a week to leave.
I had a week, basically a week, and I was scared that week, and actually in the middle of that week, my abuser shoved me up against the wall, slammed my head against the wall, and said, "Don't you dare leave me. If you leave me, I'm going to take your house, your money, and your children."
And I had the same thing.
I mean, they just threatened.
Our husbands don't know each other, but here's what's key about that. Think about what the narcissist going through. So you're hurting his ego because you're leaving him.
Right. It makes him look bad.
It makes him look bad. His image and his ego's hurt. But he's more worried about the truth coming out.
Sure.
So now he's threatening. Yeah. So they go from this loving, whatever, to immediate rage, anger, threats, ultimatums,
right?
Demands. Yeah. Bang. Yeah. So you went through, in less than a week, you were living in a house. Next thing you know, your whole life's
completely
torn apart.
Right. And then that's when, after the fact, I, little by little, it's like peeling an onion, it takes years to uncover a lot of things, but you realize that the abuse and the manipulation has actually been happening for many, many, many years. It was just
because once you do your research,
yeah, right,
and then find out it was premeditated.
Well, definitely, time. And the abuse, the red flags for people that are in situation. I mean, I wish that I had someone saying, "This is a red flag. This is a red flag." The fact that I'm a relatively intelligent person and honest and trustworthy person, and I'm capable of all sorts of things, but I wasn't able to handle my own email account, or I wasn't able to I was not allowed to have my own checking account, or I was made to believe that I'm just not don't have the memory to handle this, or I don't have the skill to handle this kind of thing. Let me handle everything. And what I found out afterwards is that,
Control.
well, in my case, 95% of my assets that I contributed were put into an account just with his name on. My name was taken off. In fact,
and this is why you're married.
While I'm married,
Still
but
married.
I didn't know it, and I had
all the time.
On my own, with my own family money, I had put thousands and thousands of dollars away in an investment account for both of my children with their names on it. come to find out after the relationship dissolved and, discovery was happening with finances, that years prior he had taken all the children's money and put it into his name and closed their accounts. And
It's just amazing how he can do that.
but
Like,
but they
without
can
your
they forge
signature,
they
or
can forge your signature. In
Mhm.
fact, I know you were I just in hearing your situation that you've talked about how your ex-husband tricked you into putting his name on the deed of your house, that kind of thing.
Oh, no, no, no. He told me
You were refinancing or
I
something.
freely signed it, but he lied to me saying this is a
Right.
document for such and such,
Right.
and it wasn't.
Yes.
But at the same time, this this corruption goes so deep because you can't trust the banks these days. You
Hmm.
can't trust the judges these days. You cannot trust or give credibility to lawyers. Please don't. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how many lawyers you went through.
I'm probably on 13. I mean, I still
Yeah,
have a
that's
legal
insane.
issue going on, and it's been many, many years, and he's trying to get the upper hand with that. And, I'd like to say that, just move on in your life. Just
And what
move
about,
on.
not only can they buy out, uh, and it's not even buyout, they might be threatening or whatever it is, but I have noticed, like in real estate, in everything in the divorce is all manipulated.
Yeah.
So, the judges, the lawyers, the therapists, these court ordered therapists, it's all linked. So you are not crazy. They are crazy.
Yeah.
We are dealing with criminals, and I'm not even going to exaggerate. I'm just going to say it. They're criminals, the judges, the lawyers. So stop giving them credibility,
And it's
which
hard,
leads me into
but
the
it
fear,
but I'll tell you, it's
the
hard
fear factor.
it's hard. Well, and the fear is part of it, but it's hard because they are in positions of authority, and even though they are lying and they have wrong numbers, and it's at some point you just get exhausted because you're trying to fight for just
There's no
equality
justice.
or justice, or
No
you
justice.
know I certainly never wanted to cause harm to another person. That's just not who I am. That's not in my nature. But it is. It's we
You
just
cannot
we
you
don't
cannot
think the
fight a
way. No,
narcissist.
and
Yeah.
we can't think like they do. It's
Mm-mm.
very hard to think like a criminal
Mm-mm.
when you are not a criminal.
They actually force you to think that way. They
Right.
do, because
To
in
try to be a step ahead of them for
well,
the
not
next
even a
thing.
step ahead, just to keep your reputation clean. It's You have to think like a narcissist to figure out their next game. You know what I
Right.
mean?
What the
Which
next move
makes
is.
me feel guilty. I'm like, oh my God, it's like, okay, all these flying monkeys are around me now. Now it's like you got to play the game back,
Right.
but
I think one thing
it's
for
awful.
that's important is just you do have to remain vigilant. And in my case, I was so fortunate because I had enough love and compassion and skill and ability to move on in my life and create a beautiful life for myself now. But not everyone has that,
Hmm.
that's inner strength to do that, because really you are shot down. Like, I mean, I even, our home, I was
Hmm.
told that our home was paid off for over 10 years, and I continued to hand over paychecks and tutoring checks and all that. Come to find out, my home was in foreclosure,
So to
and it
find
was
out your
really
whole life is a lie.
just
Everything
completely
about it
right.
is a lie.
And then when, and I happened to hire a forensic accountant, and we didn't take it too far. I just wanted some answers for myself, and found out that on a weekly basis, my ex was writing checks to himself off of the home equity line of credit. What did he need all this money for? It's hard to say. Was
That's
it a
another mortgage fraud
the
scam.
or was it
A
the another
loan.
family, or was it, his addictions, to gambling or pornography, or that
What did he
what
spend
was
the
the
money
need,
on?
what, yeah. And money can't buy goodness and
Love.
love. It really can't. Yeah. So, but unfortunately, those kinds of things are being taught to our children. They're
Mhm.
taught to lie, they're taught to forge, they're taught to manipulate.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go into I definitely want to go over this fear because I think this is really, really important. And even in the world today, people have fear of our government, fear of, you know, just being independent. Like I don't know. But for me, I'm gonna ask you the same question, but for me, I had to get over my own fear, which was and it's all over Love Dominates, is the fear factor that, you know, or the shame and the humiliation that he was hanging over my head that I had an affair. I told my husband after, 19 years, I gave him warnings in between, but after 19 years, I finally met someone. I'm in love. I wanted a separation. And in reality, I wanted the separation because it had nothing to do with the affair. It had everything to do with I wanted a father for my kids. So I actually thought if I got a separation or a divorce, that have to be home 50% of the time,
Right,
which he
right.
wasn't. So, and I could see how my kids were lacking having a father. They needed that iron fist, or they needed a
Another parent,
man.
a
Yeah.
co-parent.
Someone to co parent. And that is the problem. They never could co parent. They can't be put on the schedule. They have no rules, and they're never held accountable to anything. So, anyway, going back to the fear factor was once I put that out there on a video, and nobody knows he had multiple affairs before me. My whole life or marriage was a shamble. It was all premeditated, all based on money, um, lies, the whole 9 yards. So he had this affair first. I bring it up. He uses that affair against me, tells the children, and then starts the exact same thing. I was in my bedroom. He cornered me in the bathroom. Um, threw me into the bed, and then actually was I was locked in the closet, but he was threatening me saying the same thing.
Jeez.
The kids could kill you and they would get away with it because they're underage. You will never have your children. You'll never have a dime. And he was just like holding, something up. And he was given threats and ultimatums. So when I finally came out and spoke out about it on Love Dominates with the video, then I took that dangling carrot out of it. So he couldn't control me anymore. So the rage and the craziness started then. So then for me, I felt like some bondage was off, some relief. And then I really had to go through a point of self love, because I'm sitting there, you go through this major hate campaign, this smear campaign about you, dirty things and all these lies, and you're isolated and you have no one, and I'm like, I was the most social person. I go from having a huge family with distant relatives and stuff like that, having holidays and all this, to absolutely nothing. None. And that's what they want. They want you to die alone. They want you to commit suicide or put you in a mental home. So I went through self love and really trying to. I just said to myself, finally, it was my one girlfriend, Jackie. I'll never forget it. She's like, Tamara, who cares? You know who you are. You know you're a good person. Nobody's perfect. And then I just started saying, you know what? That's right. I'm like, no one's perfect. And why am I being judged? So then I was able to empower myself. Once you really feel good about yourself and you are doing nothing but telling the truth, there's nothing else left. Like I was empowered from that point on. I'm like, nobody can hurt me now because I know the truth. I know what went on. Only me and that other person knows what went on. And, all this other stuff is a bunch of lies.
But at the same
It's,
time, and I do understand what you're saying, but at the same time, there are those in that situation where their ex-spouse has put legal restraints on them. I know of a lady who was arrested when she went on to her. Well, you even were arrested when you went onto your own property.
yes,
I
I
mean,
was.
so even though you don't want to have you want to be fearless in a way after a while when you realize you have the power, goodness, and what's right, they still
Manipulate.
can manipulate by using legal authority. Like they could get the
It
kids.
took me a while to get to
Right,
where I am, but
right.
but what Marnie or Dr. Marnie is saying is true. Having the threat of incarceration, the
Oh
threat
yeah.
of, PFAs, which are protection from abuse orders,
Hmm.
or, all these things thrown on you. You're afraid. You can't even send a text to your kids saying, I love you,
Right.
without being worried that you're going to get thrown in jail. Now,
Right.
listen to how stupid that is. That's really,
Yeah.
that's how our system works, really. I mean, so now, how I take that is a judge, a lawyer, I give them no credibility. Doctors, no credibility. I'm sorry. I'm like, there's some good out there, but the majority of them, they don't have a license. You got to check. Some judges don't even have their oath of office. But I just, I don't allow anyone to be above me, and I don't treat anyone below me. I treat everyone as an equal. So when someone is like the judge, when you're in court and they're downing you and they're talking to you the way your ex talks to you,
Hmm.
that's a problem.
Hmm.
You're being used, you're being manipulated, and you're never going to win in court. So get out of the system. But how did you handle it? So, like, my fear, I had to go through all that. It was an extremely painful experience. Especially, you lose your kids, you lose your family, you lose all your finances, you're homeless. The
Hmm.
list goes on, but it's an extremely difficult thing. I mean, just to be in survival mode
Right.
alone and not commit suicide is a big accomplishment.
Hmm.
So, how did you handle your fear and then turn it around to this?
Yeah, to this
And I want to hear about
beautiful
your
life.
book.
Yeah. I would say, definitely you have to be vigilant, and that's part of it. Educating yourself, which actually helps provide validation, to know that you're not alone going through this kind of thing. Um, I was very fortunate in that I already had a very successful career that I was, finishing up. And I had a lot of interest, and just in my heart and soul and mind, I've always been a good person. And so I already, even though I was beat down in so many ways, and then of course with the parental alienation and the smear campaigns and all of that, I still had, you know, um, just a will to survive. And so I think that, so I had some kind of inner
For your children, probably.
right. Yeah, that was a
You
big part
gotta
of it. That was a big
stay
part
alive
of
to
it.
protect them.
And the hopes that someday they will realize what has happened, and want and be strong enough in their own world to be able to stand up and say, wait a minute, this isn't right, and I need to be able to have both parents in my life, or I don't need to be secretive, and stop telling me to lie and put wrong numbers
But
down
they
on
even
things
know
like
that
that.
they're lying,
Oh yeah, they
but
know
they
they are,
don't.
but they have to. But so I already had like a good foundation as far
Mm-hmm.
as being able um, to rise above all this negativity. Um, I but one thing that I think was important is you really reflect, and you said it was kind of self-love, but you can call it many different things, but it's really reflecting on what's important in your life and your values. And
Mm-hmm.
when people go through such traumatic experiences, whether it is a life-threatening car accident, or whether it's um, uh, losing all their finances and
Excuse me.
everything, or losing their children, or having a medical illness that's life threatening or whatever. There's so many different scenarios, oftentimes a very big traumatic experience, and they equate it to going through a war, like the PTSD,
Mm-hmm.
that it can
Like our
lead to,
vets.
it
Yeah.
could lead to an awakening in many ways, like a spiritual awakening. And I also had many signs along the way that good things were coming my way, or they were things that were coincidences that just seemed too unreal to be a coincidence. And I later learned that they're synchronicities. And so I actually took a lot of energy, instead of focusing on all the negative. I mean, of course, I was in survival mode. And
Mm-hmm.
those of you listening out here that are going through the abuse, or have already gone through and are trying to put the pieces of your life back together, you are in survival mode in a way. But you can rise above all this. And in my case, I just decided, I've always believed in peace on earth and love your fellow people. And believe in goodness, and I just focused on that more, and those positive thoughts manifested goodness, and it put me in positions where I
This is
met a
a
lot of neat people, and I realized some gifts that I had, and that I was stronger than, even I thought I was. And so I, not too much, when I of course, you're in survival mode in many, many different levels. But I decided, that I loved writing, and I had some stories to tell, and I had some experiences to tell. But, I didn't necessarily, I was living in fear in many ways, and I wasn't ready to share any kind of personal big story. So I decided to write a fictional book. And, it was in the
an extremely
works.
successful
Yeah, it's actually doing very,
book.
very well, but but that's what the big part was, that that was very liberating for me. And I decided I had done a lot of reading with Hay House publishers, with spirituality and self-help, and so I decided I wanted to be connected with them. So my book is actually published with Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. And
Congratulations.
thanks, Anna. But I
Yes.
made it's a spiritual fiction about a woman who had to have a garage sale. She lost everything, and yeah, that's the
God
book.
came to my garage sale. You
Yeah,
can hold that
yeah,
up.
that's God came to my garage sale. And
And you
um,
received endorsements too, as
yeah,
well.
I actually have James Redfield, who
Mm-hmm.
was the best-selling,
Big
who is
endorsement.
the best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy series of books. I had met him at some workshop, at like a spiritual workshop, and I said, I've written a spiritual fiction, and I wondered if you could possibly endorse it. And he's like, no, no, I don't endorse other people. I have my own Celestine vision program going, that kind of thing. I said, well, please just take my book as a gift. And it wasn't a book in this form, it was just a manuscript. And he called me up a few months later and said, I want to endorse you.
Now, is that a sign
It was
or a
unbelievable.
synchronicity? Like
It
that's
was just
to me, that's a pretty big
it was a
sign.
blessing. And then I ended up getting endorsements from famous psychic mediums, Thomas John, Lisa Williams, Michelle Motherella Piper, Christopher Stiller out of Canada. But then I also was spending a lot of time with a very close friend of mine, who is now my life partner. We would go to the IANS meetings, which is International Association for Near Death Studies. And those are
That's
scientifically,
interesting.
yeah, there are thousands of people that have had near death experiences
Mm-hmm.
or spiritually transformative experiences, and they've lived to tell about it. And at first I didn't really believe in all that. I actually grew up atheist, and I just had a hard time believing that, oh, you see a tunnel, you see the light, you hear so many of these similar
Yes. Yeah,
stories.
that's true.
But
I was
after
always intrigued by
but
that.
after
It's
you
like-
but after you hear 1,000 stories like that,
yeah.
and some from some very reputable people like Eben Alexander and his life partner Karen Newell. He was a Harvard neurosurgeon, and he had a near-death experience, and wrote about it. And anyway, that was very interesting to me, and I did gain the support of that community. Diane Willis, who is the founder and president of the Chicago IANS. I'm originally from the Midwest, from the Chicago suburbs. She wrote a beautiful endorsement of me, and then my foreword of my book is a near-death experiencer from Santa Barbara, California, Barbara Bartolome, and
Mm-hmm.
she, um, also is a founding director of IANS, and so she supported me. So I was able to take energy that very easily could have been spent in a negative way, feeling sorry for myself, being sad.
I actually watched you. I actually watched Marni or heard her going through all
Mm-hmm,
this. It was one endorsement after next, and
mm-hmm.
just door after door opening up,
Yeah.
opening up. So I couldn't wait till this book came out.
Right.
So finally I got the book, and I read it like, you know, one chapter when I could, another chapter when I
Yeah,
could. I
yeah.
apologize. I just didn't have the time.
No.
So I read like chapter per chapter, and what really woke up my eyes was the signs I was having. I was like kind of pushing off, like ignoring, like it can't be a sign.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? This can't be a sign.
Mm-hmm.
So then by reading this book, I actually now believe there is an upper power. I do have angels protecting me, and I mean the signs that came to me were so overwhelming. And if you think about the time period that you're actually getting that
Those messages.
those messages, it's a message of warmth and love, and I mean I had nobody. I mean I literally had nobody, and these were times where I needed signs. And really, it's signs to grow into your journey and go on your life path.
Right.
And
right.
what really, I mean, I was like crying on some of these pages because I could relate.
Yeah.
I could relate
Yeah.
to some stories. So this is a really excellent book. It's a quick read for people. I don't know if you can actually see that there.
Yeah.
It looks, there you go. There you go.
It's probably backwards on the.
It's
Yeah. It could be
I
backwards.
didn't think about that.
But
tell about the other books. So
well,
one book led to another.
Well, and this has actually led to a lot of things. I've been asked to speak at Harvard, which is where I did my postdoctoral work. I've been asked to speak at Columbia University in New York. Not so much on the book, but just on the concept of a spiritual awakening and following your dreams and living your life with goodness and love. Actually, prior to having this book, I'm actually an author in a number of anthology compilation books. One of them is called Evolution of Echo. This is definitely when I was in a fear situation because I wrote it under anonymous.
Oh yes,
but
yes.
it's because I was, but I still felt the need to have to express kind of what was happening to me in a way in writing. But this anonymous essay, so this book is called The Evolution of Echo: Raising Our Voices, Stories of Surviving Narcissistic Abuse, compiled by Angie Atkinson.
Can you tell what page? Do you remember what page that was on?
No, I don't remember. There's so many different stories in here of survivors. But in my case, I actually turned that story around from the perspective of the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it was beautifully written.
Right. So
absolutely beautifully written.
You know, the title was "I Am a Covert Malignant Narcissist," and you know, a parent
doing this to
yeah,
you.
right,
I am.
Right. I am digging a grave for you to die and for me to bury you.
It was very well.
But anyway, so I'm slowly finding my voice about my life experiences, what happened. You know, the God Came to My Garage Sale book is a fictional story about a woman who loses everything, has to have a garage sale. And I've had many garage sales, and it's definitely an Americana thing to do to have garage sales. But at this garage sale, she has numerous spiritual experiences and that make her question, hey, did God come to my garage sale? And but it's done in a fictional way. Book. It's done in a fictional way, almost in a way to reach people that normally would not read anything about a near-death experience, or people who did not want to read a true story of what's happened.
But I somehow was able to relate your experience or fictional experience to my life of what I was actually going through.
Right, sure.
So that's why everything I could relate to it, because you know, I had to go through, you lose everything.
Yeah, right.
You know, you lose everything. Right. So here you are wiping out everything in your house. I'm sitting there crying during the book thinking of my situation.
Right.
How I used to keep every single little, you know, something that reminded me of my parents or my grandparents or whatever, and to let go of that, you know, the heart-wrenching feeling of this has been in our family for 50 years, or you know what I mean? How can I let this go?
And you want to save things for your children, and in your case, the children who aren't even speaking to you and don't
means nothing to them.
It doesn't seem to mean anything, and
they don't care.
Right. Right.
set.
And so, yeah, I was someone that also kept beautiful scrapbooks of my children, and I was very fortunate that I was able to do that through their childhood. I believe that their father threw them all out, or
That's
at
typical.
least took pictures out, and altered
They
things.
erase you.
They want you erased, but
They
at
erase
least
you.
I know in my heart of hearts what I did for my children and for those memories. But I also kept scrapbooks when I was, in junior high and high school myself. So I really enjoyed that. But, one writing experience has led to another. This other book that I'm in, this came out a couple months ago. It's called The Last Breath. And there are some, these are true stories of spirit in a spiritual nature. And in my case, my chapter is on paying attention to the signs around you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't always have a need to write about the truth about what really happened. A lot of people can't handle the truth about what really happens to you, but I definitely love writing about the
This,
spiritual
yeah, but how
side of
I take that,
things.
some people take that as, some people just don't get to that spiritual level. But I also take that as intuition.
Mhm.
You're either intuitive or you're not intuitive.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So these signs, you have a choice. You can either block them out,
Right.
ignore them, or you can receive them, accept them, and see where or how it blossoms.
Right. So it's fun. It's
So,
actually a lot of fun to write about that and focus on that. I have a book coming out at the end of this month. It's actually a dog book. So which has actually been a lot of fun. I'm telling the tale of another person's experience with their dog, and it's called Doggy Divorce. And so I'm able to incorporate getting a message across, but also
but
in
explain how that is. It was
in a
in the
good way,
dog's
in a dog's
in a
perspective
dog's
also.
perspective,
Yeah, so just like, with parental
which I never thought of.
alienation, right? Yeah, parental alienation is so abusive and damaging to our children, but a lot of people don't think about the pets and what if, like, all of a sudden the pet doesn't see one
I
parent,
was cut out of
like in
everything.
your, yeah, right. And so anyway, that's a book that's coming out at the end of this
Wow, that's
month, a
impressive.
dog book. And then next month, I am actually very, very honored to be part of the Blue Talks
Mm-hmm.
program. It's kind of like TED Talks meets Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Corey Poirier out of Canada, he has already had his first edition posted. It's Blue Talk. So B stands for business, L is for life, and U is for universe. So it's a combination of, like I said, TED Talk meets Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I have a chapter in
That's pretty
there
cool.
about going from an atheist to a believer. And so the writing projects continue.
Is
I'm
that therapy for you?
It's very
Is that
it's
therapy?
wonderful.
That's
Just when you think you really should be just completely retired in the Caribbean, just enjoying the ocean, which I do almost every day.
so blessed.
No, it's beautiful
So
here. But I'm
blessed.
also blessed because I am sharing my life with a wonderful person. After being in a relationship for decades with someone that's so sneaky and secretive and manipulative, and then you find out really abusive and out to steal your whole life, and then you're with someone who's fun and happy and supportive and loving and just a
A
good
good
person.
partner, good
Yeah,
match.
really, it makes it all the better, so
I just had another thought to what you said, and I keep interrupting, and I
no,
don't
you're
mean
good.
to,
No,
but
you're fine. You're fine.
this also, this whole video, when we're talking about a narcissist, it might not only be a partner or someone you're married to. It could be a boss. It
You're
could
right.
be
Yeah.
your best friend. It could be a neighbor. It could be multiple people. So
It could even
once
be a family member. Like it
a
could be a
family,
parent.
an uncle,
It could be a parent, and you
well,
could
most of
be
ours are,
right,
yeah.
but you could be an adult realizing that your parent was a narcissist.
Yes,
It's
yes.
not just a
And
little kid having to deal with the abuse of a narcissistic parent. Um, you know,
I
and
mean, in my situation alone, I have one of my ex's good friend. He's 58 years old.
Mhm.
Just realizing now that
Mhm.
he thought my ex was his good
Right.
friend, but he always tried to keep him down and keep him depressed so that he could empower himself and control him. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? He just needed a drinking buddy 24/7. No harms on you or
Right.
anything, but it was like, so
So the
once you're
narcissist can
in it,
be can
yeah.
they aren't necessarily, and that's part of the education, and they usually slip, like, you know, like I say, the mask slips.
Yep.
They usually say something or do something. In fact, I recently had an experience with someone that I just believe was a solid friend for years, um and but one little thing, they revealed themselves
Hmm.
to, and then going back realizing that there was years and years of deceit,
Hmm.
and and
It's devastating to figure that.
secrecy too, like, you know, telling secrets or keeping secrets, and and using, you know, in some cases people find out, oh my god, my best friend was sleeping with my wife, you know, all these years, or whatever, you know,
Hmm.
the situation is.
They actually said that about my ex. I mean, I don't even know what. There's a point where you don't even know what to believe. You hear
Right.
so many lies, you don't even know what's true because
Right.
sometimes that ex will spread a lie so that you start saying it so it makes you look crazy. But I heard all through my marriage he was sleeping around with the neighbors. He had another family. They think there's a child in my situation, and
Mm-hmm.
I've never said this, between Dalton and between Anya, my two middle
That
children,
there's another, yeah.
that there's another one.
Actually, it happens more than you think, that
Yep.
they ended up having a secret
Yep.
family or a secret
And that's probably
relationship.
where they took the money to pay that other wife, to pay them off,
I
to
mean,
keep
who
them
knows?
quiet.
Yeah, right.
Who knows? I just think
Who
it's
wants to live a
easier
who wants
to
to
tell
live
the
a
truth.
right? Who wants to live a complicated, evolved life? I mean, people that are empathetic and are good people, we just don't think that way. That's just not, you know,
I mean, for
that's
me, I'd
not.
rather just, like I did, I
Mhm.
just came out and said, I'm in love with someone
Be
else.
honest, yeah.
It shot me in the head. But I mean,
Right.
I'd rather him just come to me and say, oh, yeah, I had an affair and I have another family. Let's work it
Yes.
out, or let's,
Right.
whatever.
And in the rare occasion, some people do. In fact, in a rare, you know, it seems more rare than not, where people cooperate,
Co parent.
co-parent. They sometimes even have holidays together, and, you know, just for the sake of
That
the
would be me.
children, yeah, that they would want to do that.
That would be.
But, you know, in some cases, you know, getting as far away from the evil and toxicity, the better. So, I mean, every situation is completely different, but, you know, I would say to people, educate yourself, be vigilant, but don't give up on yourself, you know, and realize that you have a lot of love to give, and, you know, you can't change other people. You can only change yourself or reflect on yourself. You can't control what other people do and think, and you can't let that define who you are. And, you know, I another thing I'd like to say to some, if it's
Yeah,
okay, to some of the parents listening
sure.
here, you know, some of the things that have helped me is to say to myself, well, I am married. I'm fortunate than so many other people. For example, in my case, I had 20 years of being able to be a wonderful mom and to fulfill my life's dream, was to be a parent. And so I am so fortunate that I had 20
Mm-hmm.
years, even though parental alienation has taken a child away from me. It's like a death. I mean, you go through all the stages of grieving like a death.
No, good point. I'm cutting in
No,
again.
that's
I
okay. It
what I
is.
want to
It is a
say
death
about
of a
that,
living child.
it's it's actually worse. And
Right.
I'm not like downing people that have lost a child because I
Not
can't
at
even
all.
imagine.
No.
But in parental alienation, we live this death daily.
All
They're
the time.
alive, but they treat us like we're dead. So it's, I mean, I've actually had to think myself, that's not my child.
Right.
I didn't raise a child to
Yeah.
hate. I didn't raise a child to, disrespect and dishonor and, you know, that's not my child. That's a robot.
Right.
So then I've had to, I told myself at times, and this is going to sound horrible, that I would rather sometimes my kids, um, that if I was comparing like another parent that had a death, at least I could say to myself, they're with God now.
And they've got,
And I
and you
have
have some
closure.
closure. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can't. I feel like every day they're being abused. It's like
Right.
going through a rape over and over and over
Right.
again.
Yeah.
And no one can understand that. And they're like, let it go. They'll figure it out. And
Yeah, I have found that
ugh,
people who have not experienced that, that's why the bond with alienated parents do become strong, because we understand each other's situations, and any feeling that you have is understandable, because
mhm.
there's so many different stages that you go through. And I'll tell you that the alienation happens so fast. So if you're in the early stages of this, if you're about to leave a situation and you have children involved, realize that parental alienation, well, they've been working on it for years. It can happen in the blink of an eye, where you turn around and all of a sudden it's, you haven't seen your child in 3 weeks, and then it's 3 years, and then it's 30 years. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And then
so
you don't
it's
see their grandchildren. You
right,
don't see, and that is their goal.
right.
And some, like
They want
you
to,
just learned,
mm-hmm.
some even, like mine have been through car accidents. I never heard about it. I had to hear about it through the grapevine.
This
But
one
it's,
lady,
yeah.
I just read today about a woman who just learned that her, I don't know if it was a son or daughter, their child just, that she just learned that their child had passed away, but it was 4 months after the child had died. And she did not say anything about the circumstances, whether it was a suicide or an illness.
She probably doesn't know.
Or she might not know, but it's
more than likely a suicide, and they covered it up.
Well, you just don't know. And if it wasn't her having that situation, there was someone else who had that situation. But parents, what has really helped me is to say I was fortunate to have so many years.
You're blessed to have.
I
those
was
years
blessed
with
to
them.
have that, and it could have had a much. Even though the outcome can be extremely negative, it could be worse. They could have died to an overdose. I know that there are parents that have accidentally run over their child in a car or something, and they don't have their child. They have to live with that guilt of, they were just backing out their car. They didn't know that their little toddler was in the driveway chasing a ball or something. There are parents that have to live with the knowledge that their child was abducted by a serial killer and raped and tortured and killed. And you know so there's so many stories out there. And so what has helped me is just to try to look at the positives. And you can't just ignore the negatives, but there are so many situations, and people can have it so much worse, even though your situation is bad. And and then I also, another thing that helps is just to realize that that I can have a life free of abuse, where I can wake up. And
But it was extreme. I mean, you
yeah.
had to cross waters to get away from
Oh
your
yeah,
ex.
no,
So
yeah, and even then, right?
there's
I'm
still.
on the earth. I'm on the earth. So, you know.
I mean, not to like make light of this. I don't know, but
No, no, I know.
there is extreme alienation. I mean, even though you feel that no one can bother you in this life.
Right.
I mean, they're doing things behind your back you don't
Oh,
even know.
sure.
You know what I
Well,
mean? Because they hate that you are successful.
Right.
It's killing them that she is happy and successful. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you was, and I want you to explain to people how people can get your books, how people can,
Sure.
follow you or whatever. But at the same time, what Marni or Dr. Marni just experienced was her way of healing might be different than anyone else's way of healing. Like journaling was good for you. Journaling was good for me. That helped me when you write something down and then you look back and you read it, you're like, oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
I actually went through that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So, and
But
sometimes it's very painful to.
people have to find what works for them. Sometimes people get, remember that there was that one, I don't know the gentleman's situation, but he wrote this book, Starbucks Saved My Life. So he was, I believe the little bit I remember is he was a successful um, businessman who lost his job. And I'm sure at one point in his life never would have thought of taking like a menial, um, uh, minimum wage paying job, but that changed his life because he was humbled and he had to do that maybe to survive or maybe because he wanted to, and it opened doors for him. I mean, so everyone has like their own, how they can handle it. Some people want to do service for others, so if they volunteer, whether it's at a shelter or
Mhm. It
um,
makes you feel very
that
good
you
when you
do
say
for
it's humbling.
others.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had it because my ex would get me fired if I got a high paying. So it was like a catch 22. The
Right.
judge saying, you need to get a job. I get a job. Then she's like, well, you work full time, so now you can't see your kids.
Right.
We'll give the kids to him. I mean, everything I did was, the opposite. So I quit right
Twisted.
there on the
Right.
stand. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I quit. And I did. I resigned as of today
Yeah.
at that job. But then I realized I did the same thing. I went back to waitressing. I went back to doing catering. I went back to, and let me tell you, it was hard work, but I loved it because I was able to be social and you find out what really matters in life.
Right. Right.
Life isn't about this material stuff. This is all fake in the big picture. It doesn't go with you
Mm-hmm.
in life. When you die, who really
Yeah, you're not
cares? It's
taking your
like
belongings
you're
with
not
you.
taking your belongings with you, so you got
You're
to think
taking
you're
your
taking your heart,
integrity, your heart, your goodness,
your soul,
your beliefs. Yeah.
spirituality,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
But
tell us how can people get your book?
okay, well, I have a website. So it's godcametomygaragesale.com, and I have all my upcoming projects on there and books and that type of thing. I'm on Facebook. Um, I don't, I only accept friendships from people that I know, but I do have a Facebook page, God Came to My Garage Sale, where that has my latest writings and projects and that type of thing. And then I also have an Instagram account. I'm fairly new to technology. I
Keeping it simple.
really, I'd much prefer to just, sit on the beach and write. And
So if you
yeah.
can, I don't know if you can see this book. It's probably backwards. It's better up front. God Came to My Garage Sale by Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro. Great book.
Well, thank you so much for, I'll tell you, for survivors, and there are many survivors that will be listening here. Um, you know, many of them can't speak up. They're not at a stage where they feel that they can talk, and or they might have legal restrictions on them if they were to say
Gag
something.
orders.
Gag orders or threats. Even if they're empty threats, they're still they're afraid to speak. But little by little, in time, you do find your voice, and then the the negativity that surrounded all that abuse can get smaller and smaller, where the goodness of your life can get bigger and bigger.
That's very true.
And
very true.
and then you can enjoy things, and then in the hopes that at some point your children um, realize the truth and want to have a relationship with you. I wouldn't say, you'd like to say you welcome them with open arms, but at the same time, especially since they've been involved with an abuser, it's going to take some deprogramming or whatever to be able to change their minds. Yeah, the trust is going to be an issue, and but I can actually go to my dying day knowing that I was a good mom, and that I can just feel good about who I am as a person. And I'm very fortunate that I have been able to pursue some passions and that it's actually been received by others.
Yeah. No, great job. I mean, wonderful book.
Thanks. That's really nice of you
It's,
to
no,
say.
it is. I mean, it really, you know, woke up to the signs for me.
Yeah.
So for anyone out there, please, please go to her website, www.godcametomygaragesale.com. And then she is also on Instagram. So thank you so much. I know it was a long video, um, but I'm hoping to do more interviews with others that are able to speak out or have the
Right.
strength to speak out,
Right.
because this is an epidemic everywhere,
Yeah. There's,
everywhere.
and little by little, you'll
Yes.
find parents will be able to speak out. But it
This
takes.
is why, like,
Yeah.
it keeps going on.
Yeah.
If you want the narcissistic to end the abuse, people need to speak out.
Right, right.
So,
Well, it's happening in our world, in the politics. A lot will be happening and coming to, it's already coming to light, so people that have always support what they thought were goodness, and then they're finding out, wait a minute, that was corruption, or that is illegal, or that is,
Hollywood.
so goodness is, it's almost like there's a shift. There's like a shift in the conscious collective of the world, and that,
If you're on the side of the light, you're going
yeah,
to be on the side of the light. If you're on
right,
the side of darkness, you're going to be with darkness.
yeah,
So,
yeah. There'll be different
I don't know
levels.
how
It's
people choose
happening.
darkness. I really don't.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't understand it.
yeah,
I could never harm a fly, let alone a human. I mean,
right, right.
actually, I take that back. I don't like bugs.
Yeah,
But
I
I
harm
couldn't hurt,
mosquitoes.
animals is what I meant to say.
Yeah,
But
of course.
anyway, I hope you enjoyed today. It's a wonderful experience here. And always, always choose love over hate and choose compassion over judgment. God bless.
Thank you.